Am I the antagonist for being upset at my husband for what he got me for my birthday? My 39th birthday was last week. Months ago, I was talking with my mom about a part of our state that I love to visit, and she mentioned that she has never been there. I told her we should go together sometime, and we started planning it. We ended up deciding on going there for my birthday. During the planning, we realized that my mom, my brother, and I had never been on a trip together, just the three of us, so we invited my brother too. My husband was fully supportive of us taking this trip and would be staying home with our 3-year-old son and our dog. Before we left last week, my husband gave me the gifts he bought me for my birthday. He got me some comfy pajamas, a sun hat, and some good wine and cheese to bring with on the trip. Normally, I would be totally okay with that gift, as we don't really splurge on birthday gifts anymore. But he had been talking about getting me a smartwatch and new luggage for my trip ever since we started planning it. He knows I can be kind of picky about gifts, as I have exchanged some of the gifts he's got me in the past for different colors or options. But this time I told him to just pick something out for me, as I want those things for the trip. He offered instead to go shopping with me so that I could pick out exactly what I want, because if I take them on the trip and don't like them, it's not likely I could return or exchange them. I thought that was a good idea, but life got busy, and before I knew it, it was the week of our trip, and we hadn't had a chance to actually go shopping together. So the time comes for us to leave, and part of me was expecting my husband to surprise me with a new watch or weekend bag, but he didn't. I admit, I was pretty disappointed that he didn't take the initiative to just get me those things on his own. I tried not to let it bother me during the trip, but it was always kind of in the back of my mind. After we got back, I mentioned to him that I was disappointed that he didn't get me the watch and bag like he said he would. He told me that he thought we had agreed to do it together, but I told him he knew how busy we were, and it wouldn't have been much effort for him to just do it on his own. He got offended and told me that I just spent thousands of dollars on a nice, relaxing trip with my family while he stayed home and took care of everything, and I'm complaining about a watch and a bag. I told him that he knew how much I was looking forward to having those items for my trip, and I'm just disappointed that he didn't realize that and take the opportunity to do something special for me. He apologized for ruining my trip, but I know it wasn't sincere, and he's just telling me what he thinks I want to hear. I offered to go shopping with him sometime to pick them out, and he told me to just go do it myself. Now I feel like crap, and I know he's mad at me for being ungrateful for the things he did get me and for allowing me the opportunity to have a trip like that with my family. YTA because you set up a damned if you do, and damned if you don't scenario for your husband. The two of you had agreed to go together to pick out exactly what you want. Life got in the way of that plan. If he had done it on his own, there was just as high a likelihood you would have been upset it wasn't exactly the color/size/kind you wanted, or that he had done it without you, despite your prior agreement. This was a no-win for your husband no matter what he did, so he chose the better option of not wasting a lot of money on something you may not like. YTA. He went with the flow every step of the way to give you the birthday you wanted, including when you changed the plans to go on your trip without him, and he still got you thoughtful gifts that he thought you would enjoy. Life is so much better when you focus on what you have to be grateful for rather than inventing reasons to feel like a victim. LOL, without a doubt you're the a-hole. Read your own post a few times. You make it absolutely clear you are a picky person, have returned gifts in the past, and decided to go shopping together for your own gift. WTF, but whatever. You both got busy, but him going shopping by himself would have meant carrying the risk you want to return the gift and not having time to do so since you would be on the trip. Geez, what a person you are. Must be fun living with you. You say have returned your partner's gifts in the past? That is crazy. You really set him up to fail. He sounds like he tried hard to make your family special, and you just were not grateful at all. He should be angry at you. You sound like a nightmare to deal with. Am I the antagonist for buying a fire blanket for our new house? Hi all, my partner, 29F, and I, 27M, have recently bought a house together, and we will be moving in 2 weeks. As this is the biggest purchase of our lives, I want to make sure we're well protected in case of emergencies, so I've been looking online for safety devices. I found a fire blanket for £9, so I decided to buy it with my own money, as it's better to have and not need than need and not have. The fire blanket arrived the following day, and for some reason this was a huge issue for my girlfriend and started a really unnecessary argument. She was questioning why I bought it, how I could prioritize a fire blanket over other items, furniture, washing machine, TV, etc. What my logic was behind buying it, and how we don't need a fire blanket as none of her family and friends have one. She also said this was a huge red flag from her side as it shows I have questionable logic/decision making, and she's worried I may do something even more stupid in the future. From my side, I was only thinking about our safety. It can easily be taken with us when we move. I used my money to pay for it, and it's just a good item to have in case of a pan fire. In addition, I have been looking at the bigger items, but there are still people living at the property we're moving to, so we can't exactly buy things like furniture until they've moved out. I honestly don't see the big deal as it's just a fire blanket, but the argument resurfaced this morning, and she said her family and friends agree with her and think I'm an idiot for buying it. I've been mulling this over in my mind, trying to think what could possibly be so controversial about a fire blanket, but I'm coming up empty each time. So Reddit, I've come to you to try and get some perspective and objectivity. Am I the antagonist? If your relationship is in trouble over £9, wow. NTA. Safety first. NTA. Oh no, how dare you buy a £9 item for the purpose of safety? Yes, such a huge red flag which could potentially ruin the relationship. What's next, OP? Going to buy a fire extinguisher. The horror. NTA no different than fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, CO2, or a safe. I think it is a red flag that she thinks a TV is more important than basic home safety shit. She sounds like a control freak looking for a reason to argue and belittle you. Red flags for potential toxic relationship. It's coming out now that you made a more permanent decision together, buying a house. Pay attention to her behavior from here on, don't ignore the signs. Her reaction is not normal. Am I the antagonist for inviting my non-binary cousin to my wedding? Me, 25 female, and my husband, 28M, got married in June. It was a perfect wedding. However, there were complications with the planning. My cousin, 32, Jay, had a rough patch with my aunt and uncle due to them coming out as non-binary 2 years ago. Jay dresses in female clothing a majority of the time now and wears makeup as well. This heavily affected my aunt and uncle because they are incredibly religious. They always made them dress in gender-appropriate clothes when they'd visit their house. A year before the wedding, Jay finally had enough of their parents not supporting them and gave them an ultimatum. Either support them 100% or no contact. My aunt and uncle could not commit 100%, so unsurprisingly, they kept their word. My aunt was heartbroken. So bad, she didn't even do Christmas. Several months later, I was doing most of the wedding planning as my husband is a very busy and hardworking man, so my mom, who we were visiting at the time, was trying to help. We finished the guest list. I, of course, included every single family member in both my husband and I's families, including Jay. 2 days later, my mom came up to me and had a request. Apparently, my aunt had asked that I don't invite Jay to the wedding because it would cause too much tension for her and my uncle, and they'd probably wear feminine clothing and attract negative attention. I was actually taken aback. I didn't really think they'd ask that. I told her I wouldn't out of respect for my aunt and uncle, but mostly because my mom started to cry when I showed hesitation. Furthermore, I told my husband what happened and how I felt guilty about not inviting Jay. He said that even though other family members have a problem with somebody, it does not mean you do. Since me and Jay have a good relationship, I didn't see a reason for me not to invite them. I made the decision to reach out to Jay myself and talk to them. Jay was appreciative. I let them know and that if I wanted them there, which I did, they'd love to come support me and they'd also be respectful. I then sent out the invitations, making sure Jay was invited. A week later, I told my mom about my choice and she said I was selfish and and disrespectful of my family's wishes. I argued she had no right to exclude a family member like that, and I have no drama with them, so it made no sense for me to not invite Jay. She had no choice but to accept it, but had a grudge for the rest of the planning. 2 days after the wedding, my husband and I had a convo with my aunt and uncle and the topic of Jay came up. I then told them about how I felt and apologized if inviting Jay hurt their feelings since my aunt was the one to request it in the first place. She looks confused and says, I would never request such a thing. Who said I asked for my own son to not be invited? We were shook. This means my mom lied about the whole thing. My husband thinks I should confront my mom, but my dad thinks I was the for going against my family's wishes and not telling them. So, am I the antagonist? Update: sorry for not clearing the air before. My cousin told us when he announced his change that we can still address as he/him because he understood we were used to calling him it for so long. He also read and approved this post. Update 2, wow, thank you all so much for your comments. Didn't think it'd get this big. As for my cousin's pronouns, I will mention that my cousin prefers his close family relatives to call him his old pronouns, him/he, as he doesn't really give a crap about them, and actually admitted he thinks it's stupid why people make such a big deal about it sometimes. He more cares about the principles of feeling free to do what he wants with his body and his life. However, I completely understand everyone's opinions about it. Everyone who transitions always has a different view about what they would like and would not like in regard to pronouns. But I've still changed his pronouns in my post, so there isn't any confusion for you guys. NTA. Your mom is seriously trying to start some shit. Your mom is going to find out anyway. I say, you tell her, so I talked to my aunt and uncle, and they were fine with Jay coming. NTA. You did the right thing. At the end of that day, the wedding really was between you and your husband. Congratulations, by the way. I get yes, both families are becoming one big family blah 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 and whatever Vin Diesel says. But realistically, it's how you and husband on you all special day. Like, you all should be happy and comfortable on what happens at your wedding. Forget about everyone else. They are your guests. You weren't rude to anyone. NTA your mom is though. Your mom calling you selfish for inviting someone you wanted your wedding to your wedding is bizarre. If people have problems with Jay being there, then they don't have to come, and if they don't have to interact with Jay. Family drama is always complicated and hard to navigate, but I think have done well. Am I the antagonist for making a complaint to CPS? When I married my soon-to-be ex, she had 4 bio children, 15M, 13M, 11M, and 6 female, and 2 adopted daughters, 11 Colombia, 7S, Korea. We have 1 child, 2M. In addition, my 2, 11 female, 9M, from my previous relationship live with me full-time as their mother doesn't really care much about her custody time. I have known my soon-to-be ex Sally bio children every 2 weeks for the past 4 years. Her 2 adopted girls lived with us as her ex doesn't want anything to do with them as he has the daughter he always wanted. Sally lived in her mother's mother-in-law suite for now with all of her children. Sally wants to leave her adopted girls with me as part of the divorce proceedings as she too doesn't want them as she feels she has a bio daughter and has no need for them anymore. She is extra adamant that she should not have them as the adoption agency cheated her out of a child. The Korean one is not Eurasian as she had hoped, but half Vietnamese and Korea. I don't want them as I have never been a father figure and the girls still talk about her ex as their dad despite no contact for so long. I simply can't afford more children than what I already have. Furthermore, I made a report to CPS when she mentioned she would rehome them if I wouldn't take them. Besides, I called CPS on her, and they contacted her ex-HB workplace as he works with children. He is temporary on unpaid leave while being investigated for neglect. Sally will now be investigated too. In the meantime, CPS has custody of all her children. My son is with me. She has called me every name under the sun and doesn't understand why I won't take them, as I have space in my house and experience with a girl, as I have a daughter too. She says I overreacted, and we could have solved this differently. Am I the antagonist for reporting to CPS? JFC. Those poor kids. They adopted the kids and then had a daughter, so they no longer needs or wants them. Who are these awful people? Kids aren't dogs you rehome. I guess you had no other choice. I don't know what else you could do. NTA. NTA for calling CPS. Rehoming literal children is so disgusting I don't even like thinking about it. NTA adopted children, particularly internationally adopted ones, who are rehomed by their adoptive parents outside of the system, often end up trafficked and horrifically abused because the parents don't care or understand how to properly vet potential families. And that's beyond the obvious trauma of being told by their parents that they are no longer loved or wanted and are being given away to another family. While CPS is far from ideal, at least kids have rights and recourse within the legal system. Private rehoming is a good way for them to simply fall off the face of the earth, figuratively speaking. Horror stories are rife. You were right to contact the authorities. You have done the exact right thing here. Rehoming adopted kids, let alone privately, is so awful. And rehoming them because they had a quote-unquote real daughter makes it even worse. Contacting CPS is absolutely the correct call here. Good work. Am I the antagonist for not letting my mom take money out my check? So I'm 15 years old, and I just recently started working a week ago, so I can manage and buy my own things. And I've been wanting to get a job for a long time too, and my mother has supported me all the way. I have 5 other siblings, so it's hard to take care of us all at once, so I decided to take responsibility and get a job, so I can take care of myself. But ever since I started working, my mom has told me I need to start paying $150 for rent. Mind you, I'm only paid $11.12 HR, so I don't get paid much, but she's demanding $150 a month. I gladly told her I will leave her house and take my belongings elsewhere, but she doesn't believe I'll do so. I'm planning on moving in with my grandmother, but my mom is so persistent about the money, saying things like it will help me learn about the real world, and even bringing up that she's done everything for me for the past 15 years, as if I asked to be born, and I owe her. Furthermore, I really love my mother, but I don't know if I can follow these rules. Am I the antagonist? NTA. She's legally obligated to house you until 18. Rent-free. If living with your grandmother would be an improvement, absolutely do that. Your mother's guilt tactics are completely inappropriate and toxic. Children and adolescents should not pay rent to their parents. NTA. Your mom has paid for you for the past 15 years because she made a decision to have a child. You are not obligated to repay her, especially in childhood. She is not teaching you about the real world, except that parents can be disappointing at times. When you say that you would go live with your grandmother, is that actually feasible? If your grandma supports you, does she know your mother is demanding rent? What would your grandma's opinion be of that? As a 15-year-old, do you have a bank account? Is your mom a signer on the account? If so, be cautious because she could take the money regardless. Maybe you can get an account at a different bank with your grandma as a signer on the account instead. It's totally reasonable at your age for mom to want you to do chores and help around the house. In an urgent crisis, borrowing a bit of money and repaying it urgently wouldn't be entirely unreasonable. Making you pay for her to complete her parental obligations, to house you, feed you, is not acceptable. NTA, absolutely not. Don't give her any money. Move in with your grandma and save. You'll pay rent when you get your own place, and it doesn't have anything to do with the real world since you don't have an apartment. Parents love spewing that BS. Just move out. Your siblings aren't your responsibility. Do not give your mom money, that is yours. You are still a child and should not have to pay to live in your own family home. If you were an adult, it would be different, but you are still a kid. Move in with your grandma if you can and save. Am I the antagonist for refusing to be a stepmom to my husband's kid? I know that sounds terrible, but hear me out. I've been newly married for around 6 months, and my husband has a 15-year-old son, Jason. My husband is only 32, so he had him early. It has just been the two of them until I came into the picture 2 years ago. His kid never liked me, which I get. I made the duo a trio, and he misses just his dad. That said, my husband really wants to do the whole family thing that his kid didn't get growing up. He has a lot of guilt about his mom, who hasn't been in the picture since his birth, and wants him to have a stable relationship to look up to like his parents. Now, Jason and I aren't openly hostile, but it's uncomfortable enough that I decided to sit him down and ask him what he wants from me. Immediate answer: you're not my mom, you're not my parent, don't act like it. And I said okay. That took him by surprise, and I asked if, by any chance, I could at least be his friend. At the time, he said he wasn't sure, and I told him that was fine and to just tell me when he's ready what he wants from our relationship, but until then I won't try and parent him. That little talk did wonders. He avoids me less, talks to me more. He actually indicated a conversation with me the other day and I almost cried LOL, and even will watch movies with me, i.e. I'm watching a movie already, and he will sit with me, and I'll restart it, not much talk, but presence. My husband noticed and was initially happy until he asked Jason what changed, and he didn't like the answer. He confronted me about it and said I should have talked to him about the relationship I was trying to have and that me being a friend is inappropriate, and I need to be a parent. That's what I signed up for. It put him in a bad position of not being able to use my input for future child care choices, and I'm sabotaging being a mom. And here's where the am I the antagonist is. I said, I'm never going to be his mom. He doesn't want me to, so I'll do whatever I can to make him at least not hate being around me. That made him cry, and he said it felt like I already gave up before I tried. Jason was not present for this fight BTW, and my husband isn't a yeller, think emotional convo but not mean. That kid is his life, and I know he just wants the best, but I think this is the best. But I may have overstepped here by going over his head and straight to Jason. Am I the antagonist? NTA, at this point, I'd say you're on the right track with Jason. He seems to be warming up to you, and it's not forced, which is what you want. At 15, forcing a step-parent onto him probably isn't going to go well. He'll just resist and go back to avoiding you and not speaking. It takes time to build a relationship like that and get him to trust you, and I think you're doing just fine. NTA, you did it the right way. Hubby needs to back off and let you two have whatever relationship works best for you right now. NTA, by allowing Jason to set his boundaries and coming to you, you're opening up a relationship that was closed in the beginning. Over time, he may come to trust you and respect your input as you have respected him and his boundaries. It may not be the role your husband envisioned, but it's a step in the right direction to open communication and maybe one day reach that motherly role your husband envisions. Your husband needs to readjust his vision and see the positives of building a relationship over forcing one. PS. Maybe you should have talked to your spouse first, but you also didn't know how the conversation was going to go with Jason, and your husband was pushing for a motherly role. What is more motherly than listening to the child and putting their needs over your own wants? I don't think you are in the wrong here. Sure, you could have mentioned to your husband you were going to have this talk with his son. But the conversation you had with Jason sounds healthy, and you treated him respectfully. It sounds like Jason has opened up to you a bit, and that should be exactly what your husband should want. I think you are doing a great job.